Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Hope you all are doing great. I will be giving my final presentation on GAIOLA S3, short for Gen AI Supported Oral Language Activity, Stage 3. I've been working on this project for the past 3 months, and I'm super excited to show you guys the progress that I've made so far. But before I do that, of course, I have to introduce the team. Starting off with myself, I'm Ali. I'm a student at the University of Hong Kong, and I'm originally from Karachi, Pakistan. Joining me on this project for the month of July was Jack Chen from Cheng Christian University in Taiwan. He's been a great help and a great support to this project, and I don't think I would have been able to complete it without him. And of course, our dear Dr. Maga Chang, full professor at Athabasca University and the supervisor of this project. So first, I would like to talk about the problem that this project tries to solve. I think we can all agree that AI has become a really integral part of our daily lives, especially in the domain of education, where it can be used to supplement our learning and benefit our learning in a lot of different ways. We can use it to understand new topics, break down complex things, gain information about something that we're not too familiar with. But when we use it in the wrong ways, it can also be a double-edged sword. For example, if we use AI to do something for us, to complete a task for us that we should be doing ourselves, then that tends to have a detrimental effect on our own creative abilities and our own critical thinking skills. And the context in which I'm going to be focusing on for now is the context of public speaking. When teachers or when school teachers or university professors, they assign students to work on public speaking tasks like speeches or presentations. When students are tasked with writing scripts for these kind of assessments, they often, especially in this day and age, they often tend to gravitate towards using AI tools like ChatGPT or Google Gemini to create these scripts for them. But then there's a problem there because with public speaking, that's not where the process ends. Just creating the script is not where it ends. You also have to deliver the script. And then if you try to deliver a script that wasn't written by yourself, something that didn't come from your own mind, then you're going to have a hard time delivering that because that script might use, let's say, some sentence structures that you're not familiar with, or some vocabulary that you're not familiar with. So if you're going to have a hard time trying to deliver that script or that speech in front of an audience if you didn't write it yourself. So what is the solution to this problem then? One thing we could do, and a lot of institutions are doing, is that they are banning the use of AI, they are restricting the use of AI, they're not allowing students to use AI in any of their assessments, and that could work, but I personally don't think that that's the way to go about this problem. Because, first of all, AI has become so accessible and so easy to use that you can't really stop people from using it. And secondly, even if you have tools that can detect AI generated content, there are other tools that exist to humanize AI generated content. And so those completely bypass those detectors that you set in place. So we surely cannot stop the use of AI. And so the other philosophy or the other approach, and the approach that GAIOLA takes, is to partner up with AI instead of completely banning it. And to describe how GAIOLA does that, I can give you an overview of the major features of GAIOLA and how it does that. So when you're tasked with writing a script for a speech or presentation, GAIOLA requires you to bring the first draft or the first version of that script yourself. Now, you could create that first script by employing whichever means that you are familiar with. You could write that first script yourself, or you could have AI generated as well. That's fine. But once you have that first draft in the platform, after that, that is where GAIOLA's process starts. Because on the platform, it allows you to rehearse and practice that script over and over again. And every time that you practice that script, if you make any mistakes, if you mispronounce words, if you add additional words that were not there in the script, or if you skip over some words that you should have been saying instead. So it's going to highlight those mistakes that you make inside the script. And once you're done rehearsing, you can see all of the mistakes that you made. You can click on those mistakes and you can get suggestions through an LLM on how you can rephrase those difficult words or those challenging phrases that you find hard to pronounce. And you keep doing this again and again and again. And by the end what happens is that you have a script that first of all, you've practiced it a lot of times, and it's also modified to your way of speaking because you've been rephrasing it as you kept rehearsing it. So that's the core philosophy of how Gaiola attempts to solve this problem. The platform primarily has features for students and teachers. And of course, so for students, it's for them to practice on their script. For teachers, it's for them to manage what students are doing and keep track of and monitor students' progress. And of course, we also have features for administrators who can manage the users and all of the content that the users create. I will not go into a deep dive of the platform's features and walk you through how it works. But before I do that, there's one concept that we need to understand, and that's the concept of an activity. So in this case, an activity refers to any assignment or any task that a teacher provides to their students. So it could be, let's say, a midterm project or a final project or some monthly assignment. And just like how in Google Classroom teachers create classrooms with students joined, in Gaiola teachers create activities and then students join those activities to work on the assessments that the teacher provides. So now let's talk about what a student experiences as they start using this platform. So once they log in, once they've created an account, this is what they see. This is the first page that they see. It's a list of the activities that they have joined. Of course, it's a new account, so they haven't joined any activities, so this page is going to be empty. But you can see in the top right, there's this join an activity button, that one right there. And when the student clicks on this button, then they are shown this dialog box where they can enter an invite code. This invite code is provided to them by the teacher. And when they enter this invite code, the list of activities now refreshes and they have this new activity that they can start working on. Let's say for now, the teacher has assigned the students to work on a speech that they have to present on Canada Day. Or not on Canada Day because it's going to be a holiday, but let's assume that school doesn't give a holiday on that day for some reason. So the students have to work on a Canada Day speech. And when the student clicks on this link that you see here, they get taken to this page. Now, this page has three major sections. We have the practice your script section, we have the script section itself, and we have the feedback section. Let's start off with the script section because this is where the student enters the first draft of their script. They begin writing here. Let's say the student wrote something and they have a really short and brief script on Canada Day. And let's say this is the first, let's say like they got this assignment, they immediately opened up ChatGPT and this is what they generated. And they pasted it into the platform. Next, what the student can do is click on the mic icon in the practice your script section. They click on the mic icon and then they can start rehearsing their script. As they start rehearsing their script, they see a live transcript of the words that they're saying in this top section, this scrollable section. And also within the script itself, every word that they say gets highlighted in green, as you can see. And every mistake that they make gets highlighted in yellow. And once they're done rehearsing the entire script, the green parts get removed, and so that they can only now focus on the mistakes that they've made. Now you can see that the student had some trouble pronouncing some particular phrases. For example, the beauty and diversity of is home to people of, the values we share. So perhaps the student had some difficulty reading these words or maybe the sentence structure. Whatever it is, the student can now go and click on these individual mistakes. Let's say the student clicks on the very first mistake, the beauty and diversity of. When the student clicks on this mistake, this pop-up appears where they can see these four options, which they can choose, which they can click on to rephrase this phrase. So we have shorten, rewrite, formalize, simplify. And these options can be customized by the teacher who created this activity. So if the teacher wants even more options or fewer options, the teacher has the option to change that. And I will get back to that in a second when I talk about the teacher's user flow. Let's say the student chooses to click on the simplify button. When they click on the simplify button, they get three options on how they can rephrase the highlighted words. So you can see that the beauty of is clearly more simple and more easier to say than the beauty and diversity of. Now, granted, sometimes these suggestions may not be the most semantically accurate because LLM only has access to the words that you provide to it. Currently, it does not have access to the entire script. So it does make sense to say today we celebrate the beauty of our country, but maybe it doesn't make sense to say today we celebrate the different kinds of our country. So sometimes the suggestions may not be the most semantically accurate, so you can keep clicking on these buttons to get more suggestions again and again. Let's say the student now clicks on formalize, and this is what they get. Now you can clearly see the words that are being used are more complex, the sentences are longer, the phrase is longer, the aesthetic appeal and heterogeneity of if you want to do that, you can. And then let's say the student then clicks on the rewrite button. And what the rewrite button does is that it just takes the same meaning that you have, it tries to recreate that meaning using perhaps a different sentence structure or a different choice of words. Let's say the student likes this last suggestion that we see on the screen, the splendor and multiplicity of. When the student clicks on that suggestion, it gets replaced within the script, as you can see. Now it says, today we celebrate the splendor and multiplicity of our country. And this replace suggestion, it gets highlighted in blue so that it's visible to the student what changes they've made through as they're working on the script. And they can keep going on and doing this for the rest of the highlighted parts. And once they have a script that they're happy with, a script that they've edited it based on the LLM suggestions, they can click on the button in the bottom right corner. That's the generate feedback button. When they click on this button, you can see that on the right side of the screen, it might be a little small to see right now, but on the right side of the screen, we use an LLM on the back end to generate two types of feedback. This first section, which says script assessment, that's an assessment of the content and the clarity and the style of the script itself that the student wrote. It gives the student some feedback on how they can improve that script. And then the second section, which is the oral performance assessment, that uses the mistakes that the student has made to give them feedback on what kinds of words they need to focus on and how they can improve upon their oral performance. And again, the prompts that are being used for both of these types of feedback are also customizable by the teacher who creates this activity. Once they're done rehearsing their script one time and then getting feedback on it once as well, then they can go to the top right corner and you can see this history button. They can click on the history button to see a history of all of the submissions that they've made and all of the changes that they've made to the script. Again, it's a little tiny, but you might be able to see beside each submissions like timestamp, you can see the number of words that were present in their script and the number of mistakes that they made when they were rehearsing their script. And you can also see there's links on the right side to view any of the past submissions that the student has made. So that's it as a general overview. Not general, but that's the student user flow. And now I can move on to the user flow for teachers. Again, once a teacher creates an account, they get taken to this same page, but this time it's not the activities that they've joined. It shows them the activities that they created as a teacher. So let's say Dr. John Doe right here, he created the Canada Day speech activity for a student. Now they can click on this activity page link and they get taken to this page where they can manage the different settings of the activity. In the top right corner, you can see the invite code section. This is the invite code that they can copy by clicking on this button, and this is what they provide to their students. And every time a new student joins the activity using this invite code, this count is going to be updated. Now, right now it says use 2 times out of 20. That means a previous student used it once as well, and then they left that activity. So it counts the number of times that it's been used rather than the number of students that have joined. And once a student joins this activity, in the section on the right, the teacher can see the name of that student along with a link to view the history of their submissions. So this link is going to take them back to the same page that I just showed you with the history of the student submissions so that the teacher can also monitor and track the students' progress as they worked on their script. Here we have the settings section where, let's say the teacher generated an invite code first, but then they sent it to someone that it shouldn't have been sent to, and they want to cancel that invite code. So to do that, they can just generate a new invite code and send it to the actual students. To do that, they have one of two options. Either they can choose an invite code that expires at a given date and time, which is the time expiry option, or they can choose an invite code that has a fixed quota of the number of students that can use that invite code. The teacher can also choose the AI model that is being used to the teacher can also choose the AI model that's being used for all of the AI generation, text generation tasks, such as the rephrasing options, as well as the feedback that the student receives on the script. Right now, we have Gemini 2.0 Flashlight and also GPT 4.1 Nano. So that's the student section where they can also see the number of submissions that a student has made. So from here, it is easy to identify what kinds of students are just working on the script once and then submitting it, leaving it, and what students are actually making a lot of submissions and they keep iterating upon it because then their number of submissions is going to be higher as well. At the bottom, below the settings section, you have the prompt section. So this is what I was previously talking about. The teacher has the option to modify the prompts that are being used to assess the script and to assess the oral performance of the student. We currently have this default prompt that is used whenever the teacher creates a new activity. This is the prompt that is cloned and stored as part of their activity. And then below the prompts section, we have the rephrasing options. So this part of the page is a little long, so I split it in two and put one of the parts to the side just for demonstration. So you remember like here in the bottom where I have my mouse cursor, when the student clicked on the mistake in their script, they could see these four options to rewrite their mistake. So these four options can be controlled by the teacher in this section of the page. So the teacher can change the name of the option. See if I can get a laser pointer. Yeah, this is nice. So the teacher can change the name of the option, the description, as well as the prompt that is being used in the backend to rewrite the student's selected phrase. And of course, the teacher can delete options, and the teacher can also add a new option if they wish to do so. So the teacher is always in control of the learning or of how the student uses the platform by modifying what options the student has and by modifying how the AI gives feedback to the students. So that's it for the teacher's user flow. We can now talk about the user flow for admins. When an administrator logs in, they see a list of users that have created accounts on the platform. So, and they can also see their role. So this is Dr. John Doe, he's a teacher, Will Smith is a student, and Jane Doe, she's the admin herself. And they also have the option to delete a user account or suspend user accounts such that they can no longer log in, but they still have their account there. Apart from managing users, you also see this button at the top right to create registration tokens. I will get back to this in a bit when I talk about how we're managing authentication. For now, let's move on to the next part for the admin user flow. They can also manage all of the activities that have been created by teachers. They can see who created it. They can see the number of students in that have joined that activity. They can delete an activity and they can click on the link to that activity to go to the same page where the teacher manages the activity settings. So the page where you can change activity settings, that is accessible to both teachers and admins. Then you have the manage default prompts page. So these are the prompts that are cloned every time a teacher creates a new activity. So whenever a teacher creates an activity, these prompts will be cloned and stored as part of the teacher's activity. And then the teacher can edit the prompts on a per activity basis, if that makes sense. And so the admin has the ability to edit the default prompts that are being used, and they can click on save here to save these two prompts. The admin also has the ability to change the default rephrasing options. These are also cloned every time a teacher creates a new activity. And yeah, so the admin can also add new rephrasing options or delete the rephrasing options and update these and save them. Apart from this, the admins also have the ability to manage the API keys that are being used for the AI providers. So as I mentioned before, right now we have GPT 4.1 Nano, which is provided by OpenAI, and Gemini 2.0 Flashlight, which is provided by Google. So whoever is using this platform, the institution is going to have their own subscription to these two providers, and they can change the API keys that are being used. We do not have the option to add more providers. because each provider has their own schema of how they return responses. So that requires some changing in the code every time you want to add a new provider. But what you can do as an admin is add new AI models that belong to the same provider. So here the admin can manage AI models. They can change the name that is displayed to the teachers. They can change the name that is used in the API. They can select which provider serves this model, and they can also enable or disable any AI model so that teachers can either use it or not. So that's it for the admin's user flow. And yeah, if you want to log out, there's this button in the bottom left corner. Let me now talk about the authentication features that we have. Users can log in with their email and password, of course, and they can also sign up as one of three user types. So they can sign up either as a student or a teacher or an admin. If they sign up as a student, they need to provide their nickname, email, password. But if they sign up as a teacher, if they want to sign up as a teacher or as an admin, in addition to providing their nickname, email, and password, they also have to provide a registration token. Now, this is what I was talking about previously. Admins have the ability to create a registration token, which teachers can then use to make new accounts. Teachers or other admins can use to make new accounts. So you cannot freely make teacher and admin accounts unless you have this registration token. So now that most of the features of the application, I've discussed those, I would also like to spend a bit of time talking about an engineering problem that I faced when I was working on this project. So when the student is rehearsing or practicing their script, how exactly do you identify that they made a mistake? And how do you decide what to do with that mistake? Like what words do you highlight, right? Because there's a lot of different kinds of mistakes that can be made. A student can have an extra word, or they can have multiple extra words that when they're speaking their script, they can skip one word, or they can skip multiple words. They can mispronounce a word. They can combine two words into one. They can split one word into two. There's a lot of different mistakes that a person can make when trying to rehearse the script. So I experimented with this a bit. I had some of my fellow interns here at the office test out the algorithm that was there to detect mistakes. And eventually I realized that most of the mistakes that a person makes when reciting the script can be kind of simplified down into one of three types. Either a mistake can be an addition where you add an extra word, a word that wasn't there in the script, but you say it, or it can be an omission where where there is a word in the script, but you don't say it, you skip over it, or it can be a combination of the two. And that is how you can explain mispronunciations, where you add a word that wasn't there and you omit a word that was there. So you're essentially just mispronouncing the word that was there. And so I developed this algorithm. You can see a flowchart here. I am not going to go into the exact technical details, but if you'd like, I can discuss this algorithm with you if you're interested after the meeting. So yeah, this was really fun to work on. Apart from that, I would also like to talk a bit about the architecture of the code base, because I feel like Jack and I did a really good job at making this code base really maintainable and scalable. So the GAIOLA code base, it's divided into two major components. We have the client and we have the API. And so the client represents what you see in the browser. All of the screenshots and all of the pages that I showed you, they are coded by the client. Or they are the client. They're not coded by the client. They are the client. So it's the front end, all of the visuals, all of the styles, all of the interactivity on the page, that's the client. And then the API component is what handles data primarily. So API is what interacts with the database, stores data, retrieves data, serves it to the client. And if the client wishes to access this data, it can only do so in the form of AJAX calls. So you can see this arrow, the AJAX arrow, that essentially represents a JavaScript function, a fetch function, which requests the API for some data that the client needs. And when the client gets that data from the API, it can then not store, but present that data on the browser. And then the client is further divided into routes, components, and templates. So routes are all of the pages that you see on the website. Components are all of the little UI elements that are used repetitively. So things like buttons or inputs or dialog boxes, these things are used again and again. So it doesn't make sense to, code them out every time. So you just store them into a components folder and use it every time you want to use them. And then templates are essentially layouts or wrappers to the UI that are used across different pages. So you can see, for example, in the screenshots that I showed you, there was a sidebar on every page. So that sidebar is an example of a template because it's used across a lot of different pages. On the API, we have, again, the routes. So in this case, the routes represents the different pathways or the different endpoints that the client accesses to get data from the API. Middleware is any code that is executed before a route, and this includes things like authentication and authorization. So verifying that a user is logged in when they're accessing the API, and then also verifying that their user role has access to the data that they want to access. So if they're a student, they cannot access, if they're a student, then they cannot update the settings of an activity. But if they're a teacher and admin, then they can do so. And middleware is what handles those permissions. And then models at the very end. Models are what we use to interact with a database. So one rule that Jack and I had enforced was that we would never write SQL scripts anywhere in the code base apart from the models, so that it becomes easier to track where exactly is the code that is changing the database, and it becomes easier to call that code as well. So every model is essentially a class that represents a table in the database. So through this architecture of the code base, we have allowed the code base to be maintainable and also scalable in the future, so that of course, like when we add on more features or when future teammates add on more features to the project, it's easier to keep things making sense. So yeah, we're all set for further development on this project. I've also compiled a list of issues and features that still need to be worked on, and I've posted them to Bitbucket. I'll just give you like a few seconds if you'd like to go through the list of features, list of issues. Yeah. Okay. And for the current plan, for the rest of the 3 days that I have of my internship, I'm going to record demo videos of the application and upload them to the landing page as well as the Bitbucket repository. And if I get any feedback from this meeting, which I'm sure I will implement that over the next 3 days. And yeah, that's it. Thank you very much. So the app is accessible at gaiola3.vipresearch.ca. So click on try it out, and then you can log in as a student. There you go. Let me just zoom in on the screen a bit so people can see it. Yeah, so as a student, I can see I have the candidate speech right here. And also I have the script that I showed you in the presentation. Now, this script, I can go ahead and try to rehearse it right in front of you guys, and you'll be able to see the live transcript and also the mistakes, if I make any, they'll be highlighted in the script. Okay, so I click on the microphone. Good morning, everyone. Happy Canada Day. Today, we celebrate our country. From the Rocky Mountains to the Atlantic coast, Canada is where you'll find many cultures, languages, and traditions. This day reminds us of our values, freedom and respect and kindness. It is a time to reflect on our history, to honor those who came before us, and to look forward to building a stronger, more unified future together. Let us enjoy this day with pride and gratitude. Happy Canada Day. Okay, so as you can see at the very start, instead of saying good morning, everyone, and happy Canada Day, I just said good morning, everyone, happy Canada Day. You can also see the transcript right here. So this is what I actually said, and this is the script that I was supposed to be saying. I said, Canada is where you'll find many cultures, I was supposed to say Canada is where you find. And today we celebrate our country, so I missed a few words there. I should have said today we celebrate the splendor of our country. Here, okay. So here, I think, so the algorithm isn't perfect, as you can clearly see. I did say values and freedom, but maybe because of the punctuation, it couldn't detect that I said the right words. I do have some punctuation controls in place, but I think I haven't accounted for colons, semicolons, hyphens, as we discovered in the last meeting. So yeah, that's also something that needs to be worked on, and I have added that to Bitbucket as well. But if you have punctuation like commas or full stops, apostrophes, quotation marks, those are still accounted for. Um, I said freedom and respect. I should have said freedom, respect, and kindness. One more thing that you'll notice, which is pretty interesting, is here. I did say to honor those who came before us, but because of the speech recognition like language that has been selected, it choose to use the UK spelling of honor, which is HONOUR instead of the American spelling. And the script was written in the American spelling. So to tackle this problem, one of the features that has been planned to be added to the program is a language selector where you can select both the language as well as the region for that language. So we have, of course, English Britain and we also have English US. So once that is fixed, then that selection of yours is going to be used to do the speech recognition, and hopefully that's going to fix this problem right here. Yeah, so that's a demonstration of how the speech recognition and mistake detection system works. And then I can again click on generate feedback. And let's see. Okay, so as you can see in the script assessment, let me zoom into this. So the script assessment part is supposed to give me feedback on the content, remember, not on my performance. So it says the opening is warm and inviting, and it asks me to make it even stronger. It says the splendor of our country is a bit formal. You can make it more engaging by using words like beauty or diversity. Probably, yeah. The sentence about Canada being placed with many cultures, languages, and traditions is a bit lengthy. Try breaking it down into shorter sentences for easier flow. So one thing that I added in the prompt is that this platform is to help students to practice their speaking. So you can see that it is using that information in the prompt to try to break down sentences to make them more simple so that it's easier to deliver those sentences. For example, you could replace this with Canada is a land of diverse cultures, or you'll find a multitude of languages and traditions here. Second paragraph is excellent, but the transition to the last sentence could be smoother. Let's take a look at the second paragraph. Yeah, and to look forward to building a stronger, more unified future together. Okay, I don't know, but yeah. Perhaps add a sentence connecting the reflections to the celebration. Sure. So yeah, you can see that it generally gives some feedback on how you can change the script based on the style and the content of the script, not based on your performance. And then the second part is the oral performance assessment. Now, right now, this only uses the written version of the mistakes that you made. So it cannot detect things like variances in tone or speech, or you slowing down or speeding up, because we're not using the audio file as of yet. We're only using the text. So based on that, it tries to do what it can. So focus on these words and announce it clearly. Did I make a mistake there? Freedom. Okay, so freedom and respect. So this is what I did. All right. Consider alternatives like also or in addition to. The splendor of this phrase felt a bit challenging because I completely skipped over this phrase. So it says like, it's a bit challenging.